Greetings, sunshines and sunnies. It is I, Queen Scarlet, Pimp Sunkiss, coming at y'all right quick, right fast, maybe, with my review and analysis for LoveCraft Country episode 2. I ain't gonna waste too much time. We're gonna get straight into it now. Please bear with my ADHD brain because a lot happened in this episode. There is a lot of symbolism going on, and much of the symbolism I will go more in depth on in other videos, as well as new characters that was introduced in this episode, which were Montrose, Christina, William, and Samuel Braithwaite. I will be doing analysis on those in a separate video as well. Also, I don't think it's no stuff. Okay, child, let's get into this thing. It is episode 2, Whitey on the Moon. That is the name of the episode, child. Let's get into what had happened was. So, at the top of the episode, we have Leti and George rejoicing and just hella enamored by all the new laps of luxury that is in their attainability, okay? Leti has on this wonderful robe. She ends up changing into this polo type outfit that is well tailored to her body, honey. It is a burgundy brown, got flashes of white, real nice white collared dress shirt, honey, with nice cufflinks, baby. She is dressed to the nines and hair is laid to the gods. It is giving everything that it was supposed to have gave. And overhead is playing the Jeffersons theme song, Moving On Up. Why is it playing this song that came out from a show that came out years after the 1950s? Well, child, because it is referencing to this spell that has been put on the trio, if you will, but Leti and George specifically, there's a spell that has been put on them that has caused them to forget everything that has happened the night before, and essentially everything that happened for them to get where they are. They have gotten so distracted by the shiny things of it all that they have completely forgotten where they came from and how they got their child, which is a reference to the Jeffersons and what the Jeffersons represent. They represent the image of those black people in particular from the perspective of someone who sees their success as an example of people getting some riches and forgetting where they come from and getting uppity and getting snobbish, if you will. Now, I don't think that Leti and George get snobbish, but they do indeed forget where they come from one way or another. So they all meet up in the hallway. George, Leti, Tic, and William. William begins to show them around the house and giving them all types of background information about the family, about the house, how Samuel Braithwaite inherited it and uses it as a summer house. There was also a fire that happened in the house. Keep that in mind, child. Okay. Ongoing preparation for a celebratory dinner that is to be happening that night. In the process of all of this, Tic is constantly questioning to them whether or not they find it questionable that they are being given all of these nice things, and how these people even know what their favorite types of clothing is and what their favorite types of books are. That's what George has been given, all his favorite types of books and little nerdy material that he likes to have, okay? There is a story that lends to the functionality of elitism, colorism, featureism, misogyny, all of that happens in this moment as William is giving them a tour of the house. Howsoever, I will save that conversation for when Tic has that conversation more in depth with Samuel Braithwaite. So, fast forward. William has now led them basically around the whole house, and they end up on this flowered patio type area where he abreast Leti that she will not be invited to the grand celebratory dinner that will be had by the sons, I was going to say the Sons of Anarchy, that is being thrown by the sons of Adam. Um, the sons of Adam are having a celebratory dinner, and of course, the sons of Adam do not allow women into their organization. So Leti is being prepared for another event that is specifically for the women. I think they're gonna be having tea or something, whatever. She ain't gone off with them yet, but he just told her that that's what's gonna what had happened was okay. So they up here talking. Tick is still disturbed, distraught, and disparaged that they do not remember anything that happened from the previous night. And George is like, yo, chill. Can't necessarily tell. Now, I don't watch this episode over and over and over again. And I can't tell if in this moment George is indeed still completely affected by the spell, or if he is just making the best of the situation. But in this particular moment, I think it is a bit of both. I think his memory is coming to him, but at the same time, he does not want it to come to him because he does not want to end up acting on the memory and the emotion that comes with it, because then he feels like he may disturb the peace of it all and cause conflict, which goes into what I was what I wrote down here. How is fear playing into this situation? And how is fear playing into this situation? Is anything in life free without strings? And also things being held in, this Stockholm syndrome type of functionality of things being held in and kept secret in order to avoid conflict and in order to protect yourself from someone who is ultimately abusing you or threatens abuse upon you, or and also to protect their image and to protect their delusions. So how's fear playing out here, being the fact that this is a horror themed show? How is fear playing out here? Well, fear is playing out in the way whereas Tick is kind of fearing what everybody is fearing, what they don't know, right? The whole trio is fearing what they don't know. Tick doesn't know or understand why they do not remember what happened from the first night, from the previous night. And he also does not know or understand exactly what they have prepared for them and what they are preparing to reveal at this celebratory dinner. What exactly is it that they are celebrating? So this is the fear of the unknown, whereas George and Leti fear what it is that they don't remember. So even if the memory is coming back, they kind of don't remember it. It's kind of like PTSD. When traumatic things happen, sometimes our brains will block it out in efforts to protect us, especially if that is how we have been brought up to deal with things. If we've been brought up to compartmentalize our emotions, or well, yeah, if we've been taught to compartmentalize our emotions, we will end up developing the habit of suppressing and repressing our emotions and our memories so that we don't act on things in order to avoid conflict. And that is essentially what is happening here when it comes to George advising Tick to just chill out and don't even worry about what is going on and what's going to happen and da 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 da, whether or not they being played, this, that, and the third. Is anything free without strings? For me personally, I think that the answer is both yes and no. It's kind of a case by case situation. However, even in even in situations where somebody is doing something for you and they don't want anything in return, like genuinely there's nothing that you have to do in return, even when you are blessed with something, there's a personal responsibility and there's a personal action and like retribution type period that has to be taken, because your mindset must match the blessing. Your mindset must match the blessing, and when your mindset don't match the blessing, you know how I say, child, you ain't gonna know what to do with it, and you probably will misuse it or give it away. So, like I said, that will be the string that comes attached to it. You figuring out what to do with your blessings. And that is ultimately the obstacle that the trio is being faced now. They've been presented with all of this information and presented with all of this opportunity to find information, as well as all of this opportunity to indulge in a type of luxury that they have never been exposed to. So this is an opportunity that could be an obstacle as well that is presented to them, where they have to make the choice of what it is they are going to do with what they have come upon now. So, with that being said, Tick has a little hissy fit, starts running up on people. He ends up running up on this little frumpy white lady who is like a sheriff of some sort. I called her Sheriff Frumpy. Her name gonna be Sheriff Frumpy over here. So they talking to Sheriff Frumpy, and baby girl got these dogs, and she's saying all of this racist innuendo, microaggressive stuff, comparing the dogs and other animals, dumb animals to be exact, to black people, you know, kind of saying it without saying it type shit. She makes a reference to saying, you know, dumb animals that always got their noses in places where they don't need to be, and they think they so smart, da 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 da. Stuff like that is said in reference to black people a lot. It was even said in the first episode where Tick was saying certain things to the cop and ultimately speaking to the cop as if he was a human being and as if they were on equal grounds. And the cop tells him, "Oh, you're a smart guy, ain't you?" Or, you know, some stuff like that. That's that same energy. So I feel like these dogs are reference to hellhounds as well. I'll save that for another day. But also, what she says, dumb animals with their nose always where they ain't supposed to be. See, she's standing in front of a tower, and the tower is where she resides a lot of the time. So when she makes this reference to dumb animals and things of that nature, Tick tunes into his intuition and picks up on that and uses it to basically presume that Montrose is in that building, and that Montrose is the dumb animal that she is also referring to. That I had his nose where I had no business being. And I got him up there in that tower, child. Now, there are a lot of references here as it concerns that tower. One being The Wicker Man, and one being another movie that I cannot think of. But like I said, stay tuned for my symbolism video that I will be doing on the episodes throughout the series, okay? Okay, so Tick and George get into this discussion about Tick's mom's family history and the happenings of their bloodline, this, that, and the third. And Tick basically reaffirms what Montrose said in his letter about Dora not being open about a lot of things as it concerns her secrets, things of her life, and things that have happened in her family's history, which is interesting because that is exactly what is being explored now as they are navigating through everything that they are navigating through. Everything that they are discovering and everything that they are navigating through is different hints and puzzle pieces that is telling the story of Dora's side of the family. Everything that has tried to be suppressed and oppressed now coming up inevitably because both sides need something from the other. Okay. So they end up back in the woods because, you know, they still trying to find, you know, different things of that nature. And Sheriff Frumpy stumbles her ass on upon them and ends up having them confiscated and sent back to their quarters, where another spell is put on them that causes repressed memories to come up that create an illusion that they literally live through it. So they literally, it's an illusion that they're living through the repressed memory all over again in a way, in one way or another. So for George, he's over there talking to Dora, child. He's over there talking and dancing and reminiscing and everything, getting real cozy and stuff with Dora. That's Tick's mama, okay? Over there in Tick's room, he's over there fighting with this Vietnamese lady. And this Vietnamese lady soldier, and I think we know in the 1950s that it ain't no lady soldiers, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, and if you might have also noticed that this Vietnamese lady also favors the alien woman, the Princess of Mars, that was present in Tics' dream in episode 1, at the very beginning of episode 1, in his dream that descended from the UFO that whispered in his ear. So we see her keep popping up. We're gonna talk about Tics' part of his illusion more as it concerns another episode. I believe that'll be episode 4. So hold that thought on that. Now we get back over into Leti's room, and Leti has a simulation of Tic over there, and he is commending her for the night before, the bravery that she showed, and talking about the scripture that she quoted before she ran out to get help and save her brother's life and whatnot. So she talks about how she came upon that scripture in her childhood and how she first started using it when her mama would, be being neglectful and out being man crazy and whore hopping and club popping and all of that different good stuff and bringing men all in and out the house. And Leti was scared a lot of her life, so she ain't had no choice but to find a way to make the best of situations and be brave as best as she could. Now, it's not said exactly, but it kind of is to be inferred that something violent of some sort possibly happened to Leti as a result of her mother's neglect and mindlessness as it concerns her children. And this also gives us a different dimension of Leti that shows us that she too experiences fear. This breaks down the strong black woman trope of, black women being these superhero resilient people. Now, we are resilient, but it doesn't mean that we don't feel or experience pain or other negative emotions and, feelings. It also demolishes this thing that a lot of light-skinned people face, as well as a lot of more kind of well-off people face, where it's like this struggle Olympics, and people will have this misconception that because systematically you have these certain privileges, these illusions of privileges, and people will feel like you don't struggle, you don't experience feelings of pain and negative feelings, like I said. So that's what that is also getting into, starting the conversation of and demolishing, because here we have Leti that fits into all of those categories and gets all of those types of things thrown at her, and we see a different side of her that shows that she is human and she does feel human emotions. They start to get a little hot and heavy or whatever, and Leti gets reluctant, starts to, push and pull away. And the simulation of Tic is being forceful, and he ends up with this snake penis, which references to childhood traumas and misconceptions about her adult self and life, as well as sexual shame and violence, victim blaming when it comes to violence against women, patriarchy and fear of men that a lot of women have based off systematic sociological and even interpersonal and domestic oppression that has and does go on towards women and to women at the hands of men. Religion and the shame of sex, referencing Leti's looseness. There's this misconception, this rumor, this idea that Leti is fast and that Leti is loose. And it's like, is this because of what? So there is this warped idea that women who are young women in particular, who are wise, who live in a liberated way, that are, exude sexuality and sensuality one way or another, whether they're a virgin or not. That those types of women are loose and are automatically classified as whores. It's an oppressive tactic to justify harm in the micromanaging of women. And with that being said, we end up panning up and being able to see that the Braithwaites and their minions are able to see inside of the rooms and see everything that the trio is experiencing. And this touches into the violation of black privacy, the exploitation of black stories and their pain, as well as the manipulation and the exploitation of black experiences and black stories. Because y'all are not doing this for it to help them. You are doing this so that you can use this against them for your own benefit, your own profit, and your own progress. Just completely violating them and taking them through trauma for the sake of yourself, which goes on a lot in real life, specifically as it concerns just two main prominent areas that are kind of not talked about enough, but talked about the most in comparison to a lot of other industries. But the athletics industry as well as the entertainment industry are two places where a lot of exploitation of black people, black bodies, black stories, and black experiences are exploited, misused, and abused, child, where a lot of them are talked into these dead-end contracts that ultimately end up making them like sharecropping slaves, where they don't get a chance to genuinely benefit from any of the work that they put in or any of the harm and damage that is done to their bodies as a result of what they have to do as their career and as their craft, and also like just what comes with it, the strenuous schedule of it all and the emotional tax that comes along with it as well. Other people end up benefiting from it more than the actual artist or the actual athlete benefits from it. And usually those people who are benefiting from it the most are the masters of the situation, the corporates of the situation, who are usually old white men. It's modern day slavery. But a lot of that is being worked on, being demolished and reformed and all of that. Hence, Colin Kaepernick is one example of some things represent for you to kind of do some research on your own. But also, I will touch on that in the other video that I would do when it talks about the symbolism and such. So, stay tuned. Okay. Get into the nitty gritty. So we get in here with Tic and Sam, and Sam gets into this story about the myth of Eden, Eve and the snake, and basically giving insight as to why they operate the way that they do. Now, y'all, this also touches into the way that society operates the way that it does. So this Eden story, put it in a nutshell, it's not the exact words, but I'm put it in a nutshell just to sum it up, make it real quick and sweet. This utopia that exists that was basically ruined because women and or black people wanted to be smart and also enjoy it and enjoy the fruits of the world and all of that too. So that just ruined everything and put sin in the world and created all of these things that they have to share and all of this other foolishness. Even that damn apple and all of that. And the apple refers to sex. So because Eve had sex, that ruined the world and all of that. So you see where I'm going with this? Going into the demonization of women and the demonization of women's sexuality, which was literally just referenced and kind of played with when it came to Leti's illusion simulation situation. And this also touches on why women are not allowed into the organization. And in the midst of this conversation and this reveal on all of that, Christina is like, you know, kind of finishing his sentences and, you know, sarcastically affirming everything that he is saying. So you can see that Christina is not for how they operate, at least as it concerns her, at least as it concerns her benefit and where she stands. Now, this kind of feeds into her natural human sense of needing to feel included because she is excluded, you know. It heightens this thing, and also wanting the validation of her father and wanting to prove to herself possibly that she can be better than her father. You know, it heightens her motivation for her to go forth on certain things that she may want. Okay, we're gonna hope that's all. But this is exactly what I was talking about what I was going to and I would definitely talk more about this in the separate video, but this is definitely what I was talking about, you know, the demonization, the myth of Eden, and all of that I said that I was going to wait for when we got to this part. Yes. So as you can see how that plays out into, like I was saying, about the victim blaming in society and the justification, looking for justification to harm women. So just like there are certain men who have this list for what it is to be a noble woman and have this list of what it is to be a whore or a bitch. And anybody who fits the description of the list of what it is to be a whore or a bitch, these women deserve to be mistreated. They deserve to be harmed. They deserve to be oppressed and things of that nature. And then the noble women deserve to be treated with respect and all of this, that, and the third. So it kind of goes back to those types of men who do that. Their list of what a noble woman is usually fits the description of the type of woman who will function in Stockholm syndrome, not hold them accountable, not tell them about themselves, not try to leave when they are being mistreated, the ride or die type of chick, if you will, the yes lady. That is usually what that type of man's idea of a noble woman is. So, in order to be treated with an ounce of respect, you must humiliate and demean yourself and also go through a series of humiliations and degradations with a smile. Sound familiar? Interesting. Okay. So, just making sure my mic has not died. Okay. Anywho, there was a little cut off. Oh, wait. Before we finish that, you know, I told y'all that Christina was in there being sarcastic, so she starts to get real shady, child. And Tick is also a smart ass himself. So Sam has a handful right now, more than usual, with his own Twitter. So this is also showing us some kind of, like, you know, some synchronization between Tick and Christina as well, which you know, kind of shows basically how, you know, the different signs of how they are related. Sam says some colorist stuff to Tick concerning, oh, I thought you'd have been lighter, or I didn't think that you would be that dark, and da. That references to the stereotype that all mixed people are light skinned, all mixed people have more Eurocentric features and things of that nature, whereas Tick is a obvious black man. Nobody would have really expected that he would have white in him at all. But we see in this interaction here how he and Christina have a lot of similarities, being thought less of by their fathers, wanting validation for their fathers, and also how they respond to it, and also how very quick-witted and intelligent they both are, and kind of smart aleck and shady. How shady they can be as well. Shady in a very sarcastic, smart ass type manner. So there's that. And with that being said, Sam dismisses Tic and ultimately dismisses Christina vicariously through him, making Christina the one that escorts him out back to their quarters until the dinner. So the spell is put on their doors again that makes it where they cannot get out. We hear them going ballistic, and this lends to another abuse and manipulation tactic, control tactic, where the victims are isolated, put into their own space with no types of distractions, really nobody to interact with, basically to drive them crazy and end up having them questioning their own reality and questioning themselves and kind of feeling like they did something wrong, feeling like they are being punished, which ends up impressing this deep sense of guilt into a person that is not real. So as you can see, this episode is heavily based and focused on illusions. So I don't know if it's necessary to talk about right now, but there's like this kind of little cutaway scene where Christina runs off to a birthing situation. The cow is giving birth to a shag off. She's like, this is mine. Okay. Moving on to the dinner. So as George and Tig enter the dinner, Tig is kind of showing a reluctance, if you will. Kind of like a timid type of modesty type situation like that. And George is kind of impressing upon him that he needs to act like he belongs there, because he indeed does. And before they can even really get in good, George is filling up the space. He's owning the area, and he ends up basically standing up to give his toast an announcement, letting them know that he stumbled upon the bylaws, and he read them, and he saw that anybody who has the blood of a founding father is able to get in. Now, they just assumed that person would be white, but they forgot. They forgot how them masters used to carry on. End up creating babies with the slaves, child. That's exactly what happened, and that's exactly how that's exactly one of the main secrets of Dora's bloodline, and why Tic is so special and important, because he is a major key in a lot of things. And in particular, Samuel feels like he is the key to his immortality. Everybody is looking flabbergasted at this information, like, oh my gosh, him? What? Oh, you serious? You sure? DNA test, Maury? And George is up there like, yes, absolutely. Now this made me think about reparations, in a spiritual sense. We'll talk about that more in some other episodes. So let's gonna get into the wrap up. At the conclusion of the dinner, because you know they gotta go think about some things, child. They gotta go commiserate. Okay. So at the conclusion of things, George, Tic, they go off to the tower. They looking for more clues. They still trying to find Montrose and whatnot. Sheriff Frumpy comes out of nowhere, pulls a gun out on them, is trying to hold him up for hostage and dear life and all that good stuff. And Leti ends up coming out of nowhere, knocking the dog fuck out of her and killing her, honey. So they continue on about their business. And they end up discovering this place in the wall. I believe it's like a brick that George moves, and you can see that there has been a tunnel dug. This refers to, I believe it's Prison Break. There's another movie or show. It's two movies and shows. We'll talk about it in the reference video. But Run refers to a situation where the inmate digs a tunnel and they just end up in a whole nother cell of somebody else. Run refers to the inmate digging a tunnel and getting free. George's particular segment refers to the person digging a tunnel and getting free. Both of them kind of do in a sense, but then it doubles back. So on the other side of that, you know, they go through there, they go through the tunnel there, still looking for Montrose and all this and that, and they end up meeting Montrose on the other side. Montrose comes out of nowhere, out the ground, and he is immediately cussing them the fuck out, like, how the fuck y'all gonna come out of here? You're gonna come out here, call yourselves looking for me. You couldn't tell that I wrote that letter under duress. So when you see that George wrote the letter under duress, they made him write the letter, child. And he thought that they would have sense enough to know that he don't write like that, and that he wasn't really trying to get them to come and save him. He wanted to save himself, child. Now, seems like they home free, right? They go to the car. Oh, I also forgot to talk about the part where William shows them the car, and the car is fixed. You know, the car was destroyed on the previous night in the midst of, you know, everything that happened. The car had got mad fucked up, and William ends up showing them that they fixed the car. The car was in tip-top shape, like brand new. That's when Tic had spazzed out and ran up on Sheriff Frumpy. Okay, so they in the car, they driving off, they talking about the different clues. Montrose is telling them about different stuff that he discovered, all this, that, and the third. This is also referencing some Agatha Christie stuff as well. But they end up crashing into an invisible wall. So this goes back to the reference of the story with the inmate that dug the hole that ended up to another prison. This also feeds into what I was saying about, you know, the Stockholm syndrome. When the Stockholm syndrome breaks and the victim is trying to get away, the abuser will do everything that they can in order to get the victim back, in order to drag them back to where they want them, in order to control them, or they would rather take them out as well, okay, and start doing all these other crazy stuff to make them scared, or start doing all this other crazy stuff to make them scared to leave, which is a lot of what would go on during slavery as well. Look up the Slave Fugitive Act. That's the perfect example. Look up the Slave Fugitive Act. It's surrounding a law. There's videos about it here on YouTube called a Crash Course. It's a law that made it legal basically for free slaves to be kidnapped and taken back into slavery. So yeah, so that's essentially what kind of ends up happening here as they are climbing out of the car, obviously hurt. Leti is shot, and also George is shot by Samuel Braithwaite. And you know, they got the minions with him and everything. So Tic is basically given an ultimatum, and he's like, oh, that's what they was talking about in the car. They was talking about the book of names, and the Necronomicon was also referenced. The book of names. Hold that thought. So Tic is given an ultimatum. And basically he kind of has to sacrifice himself, if you will, in order to save his loved ones. So this kind of makes you think about, you know, the theory of the, and you know, the different ideas that concern organizations that are like the, if you will, the ideas concerning it, where one is faced with sacrificing themselves or having to make a sacrifice in order to advance in one way or another. So Tic agrees to the ritual where Sam is basically going to use his body as a source to attempt gaining immortality. They hook him up, they prepare him for the energetic sacrifice and all of this and that. And in the process, you can see that this is draining Tic, that this is hurting Tic. Sam looks like he is basically kind of being elated by it. However, Tic basically ends up in the midst of his agony, mindlessly manifesting his ancestor, Hannah, who is the slave that the founding father whose blood Tic has, who Samuel Braithwaite inherited the mansion from, that slave master, slept with Hannah and basically created the bloodline that created Tic. And Tic has his blood. That's how all of that happened. Now, in the first fire that was talked about that happened in that mansion, Hannah was the only one to make it out. She was pregnant and she had the book of names in her hand. So when she appears, Sam ends up being turned to stone and demolishes. His men end up being turned to stone and demolishes. The entire mansion begins to dilapidate. Okay? And it becomes very reminiscent of kind of like the tower on a tarot card and a vision that I'd had before a couple of years ago, and a message that I had given one of my friends concerning a situation that she was in where she basically needed to jump ship, don't pass go, don't collect $200, don't worry about who else is where doing what with who. You need to save yourself and get the going down. And that's ultimately how Hannah thought in the original situation, not thinking about nothing and nobody else, just herself and the baby that she had inside of her. You know, what was important. And she had that book and she was go. Why is the book important? It refers to so many people's stories, black people in particular, their stories. And there's a question raised, very much so, throughout this entire series about whether it matters who tells the stories. Absolutely. Because it controls and determines who are considered the heroes and who are considered the villains. But like I said, they end up running out, and you can see Tic running out, and then you see Leti and George and Montrose all running out. But in particularly, you see Hannah and Tic running practically side by side out of the building. And by the time they make it out by their chinny chin chin, the whole entire mansion has been demolished. And they are officially free from this particular situation. Child. And that is what happened in episode 2. Now, as it concerns this tower moment that happened after episode 2, tower moment that happened at the end of episode 2, like I'm referencing it, it is literally a tower moment. It's a mansion that demolished, but it is a tower moment. And remember that there is an actual tower that is in the area. And tower moments refer to basically divine interventions, karmic happenings that are meant to happen, that will happen no matter what. So that whole thing that happened, Tic them being there, all of that, that would have happened no matter what, one way or The other being the fact that it was a tower moment, is something that needed to happen so that scales can be leveled. And how those scales are leveled, child, we're going to talk about it more as it goes on. And of course, if you've seen it, you already know. But of course, I give a little more insight and a little bit more meat, cheese to everything. Also want to talk a little bit about the difference in the treatment of them, of George, Tick, and Leti in the beginning of the episode, in contrast to how it was towards the end of the episode. At the beginning, we see them being treated very well, introduced to the lap of luxury, all of this, that, and the third. They're invited to dinner. They get a tour of the house. They're getting all this hospitality. And then as soon as they start to show wonder, curiosity, a sense of freedom, a sense of intelligence and knowledge and wisdom, they start to get treated differently. They start to get locked up. They start to get isolated. They start to get tormented and tortured with spells that take them through experiencing traumatic and repressed memories and things of that nature. And then when they try to actually escape, two of them get shot. And like I said, this episode was predominantly focused on illusions. And I will talk about more in the like references and symbolism video. I will talk about illusions and how they're used in horror stories and horror films more in the symbolism video that I'm going to do, because there is a specific way. Basically, each episode of this show is focused on a particular subject, many particular subjects, but they are also focused on using particular horror themes, elements, and methods in each episode. That's why each episode kind of has a difference in vibe or a difference in way that it plays out and feels, things of that nature, because each different episode is focused on a different horror tactic, horror method. And this particular episode was fear and also illusions, child, which definitely give me a good segue into the title of the story, Whitey on the Moon. The poem Whitey on the Moon, it starts to play when the ritual is going on with Tic and Samuel Braithwaite. And in it, he's talking about basically people who at the top of the food chain, at the top of the hierarchy, they doing all this extra stuff, trying to get on the moon and all this other stuff, using taxpayer money to do this extravagant stuff. His sister done got bit by a rat. He trying to figure out how he gonna pay the bills. He trying to figure out what he gonna eat and if he gonna even live to see the next day. But you want us to be worried about Whitey on the moon. Lack of sympathy for black life, lack of sympathy for commoners, lack of value and sympathy and assistance to people who are considered at the bottom of the totem pole, which are usually black people. And also, as we talk about illusions, the illusion part of it, it is a common idea, it is a common theory, it is a common thought that they staged the moon landing, and that a lot of the going to the moon and going to these different places in outer space are staged. That is a common theory. So that's how it also feeds into this theme of illusion, making you question when they, showed that they went to the moon and they showed all of these pictures of these different planets and all of that. Are those real pictures, or are those just things that they've taken from a distance and they're just showing us this? Or, what exactly is it? What proof do we, on a regular civilian perspective, What proof do we have that they've actually done all of these things and made all of these types of discoveries in outer space on a first-hand level, not necessarily questioning what they've learned here based off the weather and based off, the different other ways that, satellites, how they're able to, send stuff up there and stuff like that. But the question of whether or not a human being has actually touched surfaces in outer space, that is a large question, and there's a large conspiracy theory that a lot of that has been staged. So I hope all of that made sense. I hope all of it resonated appropriately. I hope that you were able to take something from it and be able to use it, child. I also hope that you would do your own research into things that I have referenced and connected in this video. Okay, I'm going to leave a few sources, perhaps in the comment section or in the description box. Feel free to get into some of the things that are called out and shouted out in the video. Also, anything else I want to announce? Just thank y'all for everybody that comes through. And child, if you like what you see, then hit that like button, honey, and hit that subscription button and hit the bell. Share, baby, because I care about you. It helps me help you. It helps me become more prominent in the algorithm and helps other people that are meant to find me become, more whipfully. I'm being extra, but basically it'll help more people find me. Okay, they're gonna find me inevitably as they become more in line with me. But when y'all like, comment, and share, it helps me become more prominent in the algorithm, and ultimately, like I said, helps me help you. So like I said, thank y'all for coming through. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I shall return. I hope you have been enlightened and entertained. Peace.